Welcome back.
I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Justin.
And this is the Hope Shot.
Today we're going to do episode 2 and we're going to share on Tiffany's story. First, I want to ask you a question. When you think of an addict or addiction, what comes to mind? What image? Is it the homeless guy laying in the gutter that has no hope? Or is it your average person working a job, looks like he has his life together, but secretly he's probably going through his own struggles? So we just want to share on the levels of addiction, and it doesn't have to be that bad like my story. We're going to share a little bit on Tiffany's story and how we can all relate a little bit to addiction and an addict.
So I was born in Seattle, Washington, and my mother was in the military. She was in the Army. Her and my dad got stationed to Augsburg, Germany.
Now, were they both in the Army?
Nope, just my mom.
Just your mom.
Yep.
Got it.
And so when we moved to Germany, then they weren't the best together, so they divorced. I was about 2 or 3, and then I was about 4 when she had met my stepdad, Peter, and they got married. Okay. From there, we stayed in Europe, in Germany. We moved to Ramstein. They were both stationed. Now, at that point, my stepdad, Peter, he was in the Air Force, so they were both in the military. And I was a military brat, you know. We moved around every 3 years, and we went to a different type of school. It was called DOT school.
What's DOT school?
It's military school. Like
military
on the bases, they have schools for military children because, you know, they taught you a little differently than obviously I couldn't go to a German school.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Wouldn't know too much.
Wouldn't know exactly too much, right? So then we pretty much, life was great. My dad, Peter, was absolutely incredible. He took care of our family. He took us on trips. He made sure we had fun. Him and my mom had a beautiful relationship. They were always happy, smiling. You think of like a picture-perfect family. I feel like that was us. I had me, my dad, Peter, my mom, my oldest sister, Katie, my brother, Travis, and then there was me. I was the youngest. And Katie, of course, 7 years older than me. Travis is like a year and 2 months older than me. And I was the surprise child. We all got along great. It was like some beautiful, it was just beautiful. We lived the Christian authoritarian lifestyle.
So what's authoritarian, real quick?
Authoritarian is a psychology word.
Okay.
There's different lifestyles and different parenting styles. Authoritarian is pretty much like strict. You do what you say. You do what you're told to do. You don't ask questions.
So it's like a military upbringing, like this is it, boot camp stylish kind of
white
deal.
And black on the line, follow the rules, and you're good.
Yep.
Yeah. So it taught us pretty much, we did our own laundry, we did our own, chores around the house, we did our own cooking. We were very independent. Mm-hmm. And so then...
Now your whole family, I know, they're all from a Christian background and everybody, so addiction's not really in your family.
We all have our relationship with God and faith and how the world works and is because of God's creation, right? Mm-hmm. That's just what our whole lives were built upon, And so my mom and Peter, when they got together, they definitely raised us kids in that Christian authoritarian lifestyle. We went to church on Sundays, we went to church on Wednesdays, we built a relationship with God. We knew how we would pray, and it made the world a beautiful place for us, And then once we were, I was like 9 or 10 when we moved back to the United States, and then we moved to Deltona. And that is when we were going to church. My aunt lived close. Again, big, huge family-oriented, church-oriented life. Life was good, birthday parties and church events. And I didn't really know anything of the real world other than in the church sermons. They would talk about the worldly ways and then the ways that we choose to live, because we choose to live, the way God would intend us to live, right? So that's all I knew of the world. Then about 11 is when we moved to Palm Bay, Florida. When we moved to Palm Bay, I kind of got into a different crowd of friends. I had then started hanging out Friday nights out at the movie theater.
Like every teenager.
Right? And so we would hang out in the parking lots afterwards. And that's kind of when I got introduced to the fact that cigarettes and alcohol and marijuana was like socially acceptable.
Of course.
And that kind of is when I started to see a difference in the way of the church and then the world. And in my young mind, I was like, wow, this isn't bad.
This is what I've been missing.
Fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt like I'd been missing out on something.
Of course.
And so that was kind of like that eye-opening moment, that aha when I was younger, where I had realized there is two different lifestyles and life paths, I guess you could say. And of course, I was being taught in the church still, because we were going, of course, every Sunday and Wednesday, that the ways of the world is wrong and it'll lead you to decay. The ways of, walking the path that God would intend us to walk lead you to goodness, and health. And 11, we moved there. 12 and 13, all the hanging out, discovering cigarettes, weed, alcohol, socially acceptable. I was a tomboy. We skateboarded, we BMX'd, biked, and we just hung out, right? 14, I met my ex-husband. I thought he was so cool. Started skipping school with him. And then 15, I was pregnant with him and I's child, my firstborn, Marissa. And then 16, I gave birth to Marissa. And then 17, me and him had to get married. There were some circumstances, and that was the choice we made. At that point, alcohol was the main drug, right?
Of course.
It was socially acceptable, not for my age, but we were, of course, doing it when nobody saw or knew.
And it's easy to obtain as a young kid. I mean, I remember when I was a teenager, her dad, my friend's dad, had it all in his house.
Right.
It was
you
easy
go to
get.
any of our friends' houses, and it was there because it wasn't ours to take. But and then cigarettes, right? Cigarettes and alcohol were just like the norm, and it wasn't crazy. It was just here and there, a night once or twice, like spread out over months' time. Like it wasn't anything wild or crazy. But yeah, we would drink or smoke some cigarettes, right? And then I had Marissa, and 17 we got married. 18. By 18, we had gotten a divorce. We just weren't working out. And between 18 and 19, I had moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico, because we were divorced, but we wanted to raise Marissa together, but in an environment where we both had our own lives, but could be co-parents properly. Out in New Mexico, things didn't work for myself because it got way too cold. I can't handle cold, so I came back to Florida.
Florida's your place.
Yes, definitely. And when I came back to Florida, I was here it was November, I believe I came, November, December, and then December 31st, I got in a motorcycle accident.
And it's funny about the December 31st.
Yeah.
If you watched my story before, it was the same time.
The same exact night.
Same exact night. She was in ICU with a motorcycle accident, and I was in ICU because I got stabbed.
Right.
And that's a little...
we had some commonality.
It's a weird commonality, but it's commonality.
Right.
We're running with it.
And so then I got home from, of course, the hospital, and they had given me prescribed pain medication. And at that point, it took a few months of recovery. Road rash head to toe, and, being very, very, very sore and just stuck. I pretty much stayed on a couch for 3 months.
I couldn't.
And thank God for my ex-husband's, mom. She took care of me, and I went down on the bike with his brother, and his brother was in ICU and ruptured spleen and some crazy stuff too, And so he came home, and at that point, Joy had to take care of us because we couldn't take care of ourselves. Mm-hmm. Christopher had Marissa at this point. He was taking care of her for me, and that was when that was my very first come into of pain medication. I didn't know what pills were.
Well, that's usually how it starts, is you get hurt, you get prescribed something, and then
yep.
And you feel that feel good.
Yeah, and they were definitely a feel good. For the first month, they kept me asleep.
Oh.
You know what I mean? I would wake up, I would start to feel pain, she would feed us, she would give me my pain medication, and I would go right back to sleep. You know what I mean? And then when we would wake up, we would watch TV or Netflix, and then eat pain medication, go to sleep, And then slowly but surely, of course, she knew to start weaning. I didn't need it as much, right? It should starting to get better. After about 3 months, I believe, I got to a point where I was able to get up and get moving around. I had to kind of relearn how to use some of my functions because I'd been so still for so long because of the road rash. And I had, broken some wrist bones and broken some, discs, all that weird, crazy stuff.
Didn't you have to go through
I moved back
physical
over.
Therapy?
Right, at that point I was in Palm Bay. Then I moved over here. My parents were here in Newport Richey. And I moved back over here with them. I made some friends. I had already made some friends, and I started hanging out with them, and I had to do physical therapy, right? And that group of friends that I was hanging out with, she actually let me move in with her, and I was still taking these painkillers. They were prescribed to me, and they made me feel good. They made me...
okay, if they're prescribed, I'm good. It's weird because we have a license to drive after that,
absolutely.
for the painkillers.
And it made me feel like I was a superwoman. Like,
yeah.
If I didn't take my painkiller, there was so much pain. But if I took that baby, I was good to go. I could do anything, and it was like an amazing thing. So I was like, oh yeah, these are mine, And there were some certain points where it got to. I kind of started to realize I had a problem without knowing there was such thing as having a problem, because at this point I really still didn't know about addiction.
And plus you're getting prescribed, and when you're getting prescribed, it's almost like it's not a problem because the doctor gave them to you. The doctor gave them to you.
They're telling me to take them. If I'm in pain, take them. So I'm taking them because I'm in pain, right?
As prescribed, as long as,
Right, and then that was when I kind of started to notice that I had something was going on inside myself. I didn't know what it was because I was trying to take them a little sooner than the time.
Yeah, you start trying to manipulate it a little bit.
Right, and I'm like, well, I like that feeling that it gives me. And so I started to notice, and then there was a time or two where I might have knocked the bottle over and they went in the toilet to get myself another bottle. Right, and then again, that's when I really started to notice.
That's a classic.
There's something going on.
Yeah,
But I want more, and I need more, so I'm going to get more.
And you can't see that,
And I couldn't stop myself. I remember being on the phone calling the doctor's office, kind of thinking, "Oh, I shouldn't be doing this, but I want more. I need more. It's okay. I need more." So then, the person I was living with at the time, she was my best friend. I loved her and her family and her daughter, and they told me, she came to me one day and she said, listen, I see what's going on here. If you want to live like that, that's fine, get out of my house. If you want to stay in my house and keep me as a friend, you need to go dump those down the toilet and cut it off. And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, no problem. I'll dump them out. I don't want to get kicked out. I didn't even see at that point what was going on, but she's seen it.
That's a good friend because most people are like, hey, can I get some?
Right.
Yeah,
and so I dumped them down the toilet. That was the end of that, but that same group of people that I was hanging out with, there was another friend. We got into the spice. I don't know if any of you guys know what the spice ordeal was, but it was like potpourri that you would roll, and there was some dabbling in
synthetic.
Synthetic marijuana.
Horrible.
And again, at that point, I didn't think anything was wrong because I wasn't doing the painkillers anymore, and it was a socially acceptable marijuana. And so, but then we kind of moved on from that, and drinking became more of a bigger deal, right? That group of friends I was hanging out with was drinking. I wasn't old enough to drink, so I would stay home. I was 19, right? I would stay home, watch the kids. They'd go to the bar every night, and they'd come home. When they came home, then we would drink some more at the house with me, and they would always be talking about this guy, Justin. And they would rave about this guy Justin, how cool he is, how funny he is.
And it's funny because this is the time, if you watch my story, in 2011 when I was trying to get my stuff together, but the drinking started to up itself, and as long as I don't touch painkillers, I'm good. So the drinking became my thing, and that's where I met all these people, and that's kind of how our paths crossed.
Mutual friends through drinking. And I went to a family trip for church, Vacation Bible School. I went for a week to Emporia Baptist. And I was with my family. My grandfather's a pastor. We did VBS, Vacation Bible School, for that week. And then my dad was actually coming back a couple days earlier than my mom, and I asked him if I could, because that whole week I'd been texting Justin and messaging Justin all day, every day. And then my dad brought me back, and I said, hey, do you mind dropping me off at my friend's house? And he dropped me off at Justin's house, where he had lived with his friend Jesse. Dropped me off, and I never left.
Yep.
And from that point, me and him, it was just, he would go to work during the day. I would kind of clean, do laundry, hang out with the kids that were at the house if they were there, and then we would drink.
Out to the bar.
Every night.
Every night.
Every night. There was a specific bar Monday through Saturday that we had scheduled out. Sundays we usually didn't go out. We would kind of recover that day and relax.
And again, it wasn't a problem.
Right, it wasn't a problem.
We were just having fun.
We were just socially having a drink every, night.
Yep.
And then Jalen.
Yeah, and then you got pregnant with Jalen.
Yeah, and I got pregnant with Jalen, and I had to stop drinking. So yeah, we were trying to build ourselves a home. After I had Jalen, once I turned 21, I waited a little bit, but then drinking, it was on and popping. You know, I was like, I'm old enough to go to the bars. So then, you know, we would find babysitters and we'd go out to the bars. But then it more so became a drinking at home thing, though, because we didn't want to be drinking, driving, and coming home to my newborn, you know, picking up my newborn to bring her home if I've been drinking, right? So then we started to, you know, be homebody drinkers. You know, it was okay because we'd hang out at the house in the kitchen at night, you know, just have a couple drinks. We're home. We're not driving. We're not doing anything bad.
And then that's when the other extra stuff started to come into play. Is the dabbling. It's the, you know, your friend that drinks and we're all partying, he has something and then they have something and it's just,
hey, you want to try this? I don't know, what is it? Oh, sure. I mean, I guess we're home, right? It can't hurt anything. Let's try it.
And it's that unmanageability with life. It's like, yeah, it's fun. But I mean, really, is it? It's like the responsibilities that you have. You have a child, you have a business, you're trying to go to work, and you're sitting here partying every night. It just became unmanageable.
Right.
And there was a lot of times that we had fights or just it was tit for tat. Our relationship was unhealthy.
We were very childish.
Very, very, very childish. And
I mean, because when you think about it, when you're drinking, you get into fights, right? Because your mind is now altered, and like I would see him do something, or you know, and I would get so angry or so upset over something that was very minuscule, but because you're drinking and drunk, your feelings and emotions are obviously
haywire.
They're exaggerated. That's
There you go.
The word. And so there was many fights, many nights where I'd leave the house in my car. You know, there was many nights where he would go off.
Stay with Nicole.
Yeah, I would go stay at my girlfriend's house because I couldn't handle what was going on at home and I didn't understand it, right? None the while thinking it was drinking. It wasn't the alcohol. It was him. Or it was, oh, well, I was kind of stupid. I got mad about something silly. I'm sorry, babe. You know?
Yeah.
The next day, it was always those next day apologies.
And then, I mean, after that, we had Jace.
Yeah.
You got
and
pregnant with Jace.
Things got real serious at that point because I'll never forget that night. We had actually gone to a glow run with some friends, and my mom was with us and Vanessa, and we were out, and I felt like I was going to puke, and they jokingly said, are you pregnant? And I was like, no way. And on the way home, we picked up a pregnancy test.
And boom.
Justin had actually went in a different car home, and it was me, Vanessa, and my mom. And we went home, took the pregnancy test, and after I took the test, Justin calls and says, jokingly, not that I knew at that moment, that he got arrested.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I was joking.
And so I literally fell, as soon as I seen that it was a positive, I slammed my back against the counter and fell to the floor crying and sobbing because I didn't want to live this way anymore. I didn't want to have another child in the conditions that we were living. I didn't want to, like, he had just told me he got arrested, and so I'm like, my life is falling apart. There's no way I'm ready for another child. There's no way we're okay parents enough
for two.
Another one, like, I was scared to the core for my just everything, you know. And my mom, thank God she was there that night because she prayed with me. And see, going through all these years after the motorcycle accident up to this point, my relationship with God, now I always obviously believe in God. I know God is my foundation, right? But I had turned away from God. I turned my back on him, and I felt like he is the reason anything was wrong in my life, right?
I mean, that's most
the blame.
Anybody.
I had to blame
somebody.
somebody.
A lot of us are like, how can I, believe in a God that's let me be like this? You know, why is my life like this? And that's what a lot of people in addiction go through. You know, how can I believe in something when he's let me go through all this?
Yeah.
But, I mean...
When I look back, well, it was not God. Right, I didn't want to take responsibility. So it was God.
Everybody else.
That night my mom prayed with me, and you see, I had never felt the wash that I felt wash over me that night. God's peace, God's grace, God's, serenity, where he let me know, I am here, I'm holding you, and everything's going to be okay. Just, have faith. And so from that moment on, of course, I was pregnant, and no more drinking, no more partying, and things started to change also in our relationship because, again, both him and I wanted something different.
But we just didn't know how. We just didn't know how. Like, we'd have moments of clarity. Like I always say, I said it a lot in my story. It's like the moments of clarity where you're like, all right, I'm going to get my stuff together.
Yeah.
And then it just takes a little bit to start going back because you don't do anything different. You're not changing anything about you. You just, you're becoming a little bit more clear, but you're not changing the behaviors, of what leads you into that again.
So that's when we got given the opportunity to move to Spring Hill.
Oh, yeah.
And we thought, perfect. Geographical
change.
We were like, we'll move and that will solve our problems. We won't drink so much anymore because
it's them.
It's them. They're making us drink because we're hanging out with them all the time. So we won't be able to hang out with them. It'll solve everything.
Mm-hmm.
No. We brought ourselves with us.
Yeah.
And, it was, again, just rocky. We moved to Spring Hill, moved into the house. By this time, Jace was 2 weeks old. Jalen was 2.5 years old. I knew I needed something to financially take care of myself if, God forbid, anything were to happen. I wanted to become a dentist my entire life as a child. That was like a dream of mine. I wanted to become a dentist, open up a free clinic, and give braces away to all the children who can't afford them. Yeah, that was my dream. And then, let's see. So I started college, and then I found out about dental assisting school here in Spring Hill. They have a school specifically for it, a course, and I took it, started it. All the while, we were still drinking when I would come home from classes. We were still hanging out with those same friends. We were still dabbling in this, that, the other, just doing it at home, so we thought we were okay. And
on a minor level.
Minor level, yes.
Mine was on a major level.
Unbeknownst to me, right? Yeah. And then we kind of, life slapped us in the face with reality. The friends we were hanging out with, some major events happened while we were drinking together that really...
They weren't really friends?
Right. They weren't friends at all. And so we had to learn a really hard lesson. And I had almost been done with school at this point. I remember it's May 2017. You graduated. It was my birthday. We went out to... Shepherd's. Yeah, it was all around that same time.
Yeah.
And then life really slapped us in the face, and we knew we needed change. We knew we needed something different. Justin's mom had passed away, and the state got called on him, and
all in 2017.
All the hurricane that had blown through, like there was so much going on. And then on top of it, the home that we were living in, the owner wanted to sell it, and we couldn't buy it, so we needed to find a new place to live. At that point, we moved to another home in Spring Hill. And then
that was the beginning of 2018.
And the beginning of when we really knew there has to be something different. We have to change because we're kind of forced to change who our friends were at this point.
Yeah.
We kind of became hermit crabs at home. We would work. I would work. I got a job right out of school, and our kids went into daycare. We kind of were forced into, and it was enjoyable, responsible adulthood. Going to work, coming home, being a family at night, eating dinner, going to bed, and doing it all over again the next day. But we were still drinking. Like, we stopped for a little bit, but then we slowly, again, it's a little snowball effect,
And it's funny because, like, our drinking, we're like, oh, we're going to do one.
Just one shot.
One shot when we get home. We're tired. We deserve it.
We didn't drink all week.
Yeah, we've been good. A little pat on the back. And then that one shot leads to a whole bottle, And then it's not
every
her,
time.
It's me. And it's not me, it's her. And it just...
We would egg each other on.
Yeah.
I'd be like, no, let's stop. And he'd be like, no, let's do it. Just one more. And then the next night... Or the next... Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the next night, it was the opposite. He'd be like, no, it's time for us to stop. And they're like, ha! So...
Yeah, and that was our life. And that was the beginning of 2018. That's when, like, I had this, the circus up in my head telling me the state wouldn't approve me. And then that's when things, March came around and
he was ready. He started daycare. And at this point, I was like, thank God. Because that's when he also had kind of come clean to me about everything that was really going on. I mean, throughout the years, he had told me some stuff, like little bits and pieces. So I kind of understood what was going on. And then, at this point, he fully laid it all out to me. And I was a little blown away, taken back, like, whoa. But it all kind of made sense. The puzzle pieces fell together, right?
And I wasn't this like your friends would tell you to leave me and...
Yeah, I mean, well, they wouldn't tell me to leave you, but I mean, they always said that only you, famous words, only you know how much you can take, right? Because as you said many times in your story in our last episode, everybody kept getting tired of your shit.
Everybody.
Right?
Yep.
And that was the thing where I might have been tired of the lifestyle we were living, but see, I knew I was a part of the problem too. I was dabbling and drinking as well, but
not to the full extent.
Right. You know, my level of was different.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't tell me to leave you. They would just only you know how much you can take. And I wanted more of him, but I wanted more of him that good part when I would get him on the up and up of the 6 month, intervals. Like
we're up here and then the 6 month down.
I wanted more of that. So that's what made me stick around.
Yeah.
Then he started in daycare.
It was March. So in March, it was my mom's birthday weekend, and then that's when it started to. I checked myself in the daycare. That was the last weekend that I really got, messed up bad, and we had a fight, and it was a mess. And March 16th, 2018 was my clean date, and I never looked back. What I did is I threw myself into recovery, meetings, sponsorship, you name it, I did it. Anything and everything.
Events.
And at this time, I mean, what was going through your head as I'm doing all this new things? And it when it comes to relationships, and it's like my fear going into, trying to do recovery is like our lifestyle. Is she going to stay for that part because I mean, we're on this lifestyle together. We're doing this thing and, we're drinking and having fun. Well, what happens when it's all gone? Like, are you going to, and that was a fear of mine. And I was like, you know what? I don't care, because you know what they say, you have to do it for yourself. You have to do it for yourself, and everything else will follow. And I didn't grasp at the time, but I was like, screw it, throw it in. Let's do this. So, like, how is it on your end seeing me do all this and, like, what you're going through?
Well, in the start of it, I was like, thank goodness. Like, this is the start to the rest of our life, right? The first, week, I was all about it. Then, like you said, you did 90 and 90. You threw yourself full force into it, and that left me for 90 days, evenings, literally with 2 children at home after a full day's work, alone. And I could see a change in you. I was scared of what it was. I didn't understand what it was. I saw you having new people you were talking to all the time, and I was alone all the time. So I was going through my own bit of, well, I'm glad he's doing something, but now I feel like I'm getting left in the dark. I'm being separated from him. He's living this new life, and I'm just over here taking care of the kids by myself, Woe is me. Whoa, poor Tiffani. And so I would drink. I would closet drink at this point, kind of, because I didn't want him to know that I was doing it, because he's getting clean, He's not drinking. We made a pact together that we weren't going to live that way anymore. And so
it didn't really come to fruition until, we both had to have a serious conversation together and be like, look, one can't be doing this and the other can't be. We both have to be. It was almost like it's that same thing. One would be, on board, and one wouldn't.
Right. We kind of took turns for a while, right, through the years and stuff. But it also came to that, like you said, that conversation. He had to sit down with me because I thought nobody knew I was drinking.
And everybody knew. I didn't even know, though, sometimes. My friends knew.
And I thought I was hiding it. And that is when he sat me down. He said, look, I know that you're drinking, and I can't be with you if you are going to live that lifestyle, because I can't live that lifestyle. So I had to choose, in that moment, do I want to continue forward living a life with him, with our 2 children, or do I want to keep drinking and we'll separate,
And it's not, because that sounds kind of messed up.
It's not, though. It was the reality of where we were, though.
Yeah, because, we both have to see that there's a problem in our lives, and we both have to want the same things. 2 people that don't want the same things almost can't be existent in a relationship. That's impossible.
It wouldn't work for us, for sure.
Wouldn't.
So,
Then
we decided in that moment that I was like, no, I want to be with you. I will quit drinking. And I had to admit that I had a problem, and it took me even some time after that. It took me some time after that to...
Alcohol is one of the hardest ones to actually admit there's a freaking problem.
Right, it was so socially acceptable, and I was like, he's the one who has the problem. Because at that point, like I said, he came fully clean to me, and I'm like, whoa, buddy, you're the one with all the problems. I'm just Miss Angel.
Yeah.
But I had to admit I had a drinking problem.
And that's where we can all relate a little bit of how addiction works. And with alcohol being so acceptable, it's almost impossible for anybody to see that there is a problem with drinking all the time,
Yeah. So then we got to that point where, in recovery, it had then been long enough for me to see that he had some true change going on. It was just beautiful. So he asked me to come with him to a function, a camp out with all these people that he had been hanging out with and finding new friends in, right? And that was my first experience of what even is recovery and what is it, why is it, how do I get some of it,
That's where, and it's funny because it's like, the scary part is going into their inner relationship and changing, you, and hopefully the other person comes with you. And, then it's like you do it and they follow. And that's kind of like the message that I, in a relationship, if you go do what you need to do to change yourself, and if they don't follow, then it was never meant to be. But if they do,
just be a leader.
We're supposed to be the head. We're supposed to lead the way.
Give that example of what it looks like on the other side after you're in it for a little while, and then that's what made me follow. Was I wanted that clarity. I wanted that joy. I wanted that happiness that he all of a sudden started to have. After a while, it took some time.
It did take some time.
But eventually he started to have something. I'm like, I want that, and so then when I went and I found out what recovery was, and I started to go to meetings and understand some of what it is, and it was cool because we had some conversations about how, I was raised in church, and a lot of the principles, it was spirituality, right? Yeah. So they kind of aligned with what I knew I should be living my life like if I was following the path God intended me to be on, because he had his spirituality and his recovery, but then it actually led me back to land on my knees and ask for forgiveness and ask God to please help me change my ways. And that kind of re-sparked my relationship with God. And it got strong and it grew from there. And recovery, it's
changed our lives forever. So recovery, how it changed our lives is not just, it took out the drugs and alcohol and we don't party anymore. Recovery is, everybody thinks that once you take those things out, then your life becomes just so much better, but it's not. The drugs and alcohol is just a symptom of our problem or whatever. Why do we keep actually doing what we do? And it's because of the behavior that we have. So a little bit is our personal growth, our relationships, our friendships, the people, places, and things have changed for us along the way through recovery.
Because recovery taught us how to have fun and how to have conversation and how to function without alcohol, without drugs.
Yep. And, we talk about we had friends back then when we were using and stuff like that, but they weren't real friends. I have friends today, they do something for me and I'm like, all right, well, what's the catch? And my buddy always tells me, he's like, there is no catch. We're friends.
Right.
This is why we do this for each other. And he has to say that every once in a while. And I'm like, wow, it blows my mind, that people, the people I have in my life today, it's a healthy relationships. It's people that don't want something in return for doing something nice for you. Right. It's a beautiful thing. And it's only possible because I decided to do the 90 and 90. That's where you actually get that foundation that you need to actually get into recovery and get the things that you need.
Get that support system.
Yeah, the support system. It's huge. The support system, the steps, the sponsorship, all that is very important when you're first going in there. And how do you get that? You got to get, tapped in. You got to get those tools that you need. So when life happens, you know how to handle it as it comes at you. Life on life turns. You know how to handle it as it comes at you. Because life is still life when you're using or when you're clean. But you know how to cut out the negative. You learn how to see more positive. And it's not all the time. It's not like I'm some freaking spiritual guru that just floats around. Because that's not the case, man. It's there's always work to be done. It's a maintenance thing that always keeps happening. And because of that, we've both changed. Our friends, the people you talk to now, they help you a great deal.
Yeah, I really feel like my favorite part of recovery is my absolute favorite part of recovery is my relationship with God. who and how I can be in my daily walk now is beautiful because I have clarity of mind, right? And through recovery and the principles and spirituality and my relationship with God, my friends and the things and the events that I involve myself in, they are all about helping and loving our community, and it's all about helping and loving the people around us. And, all of us have the same goals and the same visions for, the future of our lives of helping and loving people and going out of our way to do stuff for other people. And I think it's really special to know that we're surrounded with so much love, and that because we're surrounded with so much love, we can give out so much more love. And
now that we love ourselves a little bit more,
recovery definitely gave us that.
Yep. So, and that's why I asked that question, is like the image in your head is, what do you see? What do you think of when you think of an addict or someone that has an addiction problem? It's not your guy in the gutter. It can be anybody, or it's somebody with a different upbringing than what I had. It doesn't have to be as bad as going down that path.
I mean, you think of somebody standing in the sand at the ocean, and some people might go with just their toes in and run out. Some people go to their ankles. Some people go to their knees. Some people go to their chest, and then other people's get, go so far into the ocean they're covered, head.
Diving, huh?
Right, and there's like levels of it. Because see, for me, I didn't go so deep into it, but that doesn't mean that addiction didn't take hold in my life. The addiction of alcohol, the addiction of having fun and partying, the addiction of the social life. Addiction has so many forms, social media, shopping, food addiction, gambling, photography, codependency. There was a while where codependency was actually played a role in my addiction throughout my story. There's some times where I needed somebody, where it wasn't a healthy relationship. So it's interesting. Addiction, like you said, isn't maybe the vision you immediately think of. Addiction looks different and takes so many forms, but in the end, there's recovery for it. And that's what we're here to show, is that from addiction to success. I mean, my success today is I'm a dental assistant, and I have a great working family in the dental field. They're amazing. I have a beautiful family and a husband now. We got married, like we said in our first story. We bought our first home. And we have amazing friends who love us and who we get to love too, because we're able to love them now.
And all because we did something.
And my
family,
our families trust us and love us and know us, and we get to be an active role in our families. Our extended families. We get to go on vacations to see them, and that's something we didn't care about when we were using. So it's special to have those relationships with our aunts and our uncles and our cousins and our moms and our dads that we didn't have when we were using. And so recovery brings so much success. So much success.
And that has been another episode of Addiction to Success. And thank you for watching. If you like what you seen, heard, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell, that way you don't miss a notification. And leave us a comment. Tell us what you think. Like, share, whatever you want to do.
Share your stories.
And then we'd love to hear from you if you're that person that's battling with it. Or maybe you just want to say something about it. So thank you for watching. And this has been your Hope Shot.